Amina Adedeo was the proud owner of Momo's Delight, one of the most popular restaurants in the vibrant city of Lagos. Nestled between tall buildings and busy streets, her restaurant attracted everyone, from politicians to market women, from taxi drivers to business moguls. People couldn't get enough of her delicious food. But no one knew the dark secret behind her irresistibly flavorful dishes. It was late in the evening when Amina, hidden beneath a cloak of darkness, ventured towards the city's outskirts, where few dared to go. The old mortuary on the hill, where whispers of death lingered in the air, was her destination. She slipped through the iron gates unnoticed, her heart pounding with anticipation. Deep inside, she made her deal: water used to bathe the dead in exchange for cash. With a small, discreet bottle of the sinister liquid hidden in her bag, Amina left as quietly as she came. The secret ingredient she used in her dishes had a hold over her customers, drawing them back day after day, craving more. Amina's restaurant quickly became a sensation. The lines stretched around the block, and no one could resist the aroma that wafted from her kitchen. People swore her jollof rice, egusi soup, and spicy goat stew tasted like nothing they had ever experienced before. Momo's Delight became a household name, with journalists writing rave reviews, and bloggers declaring her the queen of Nigerian cuisine. What baffled everyone was how ordinary ingredients, available in every market in Lagos, could be transformed into such a divine experience. Amina, however, kept her secret guarded with the intensity of a lioness protecting her cubs. She smiled at her customers, but behind her eyes flickered a darkness that no one could see. The water from the dead bodies made her food irresistible. With each drop, the souls of the dead clung to her dishes, making those who ate them addicted, unable to stop coming back. Among her customers was a young journalist named Kola, known for his investigative prowess. At first, he too was captivated by the food, like everyone else. But soon, Kola's sharp instincts noticed something odd. He watched as regular patrons kept returning, more frequently and with an almost desperate hunger in their eyes. Something wasn't right. He began to ask questions. He talked to the regulars and followed the delivery trucks that came to Amina's restaurant. But nothing seemed out of place. Still, Kola's gut told him that there was more to the story. The way Amina glided through the kitchen, her eyes filled with secrets, made him more determined than ever to uncover the truth. One night, while Kola was deep in his investigation, he came across an old mortician, known only as Boba Durojoyo, who worked at the mortuary near the outskirts of Lagos. He had heard stories, whispers, really, about a woman who frequented the mortuary late at night. Intrigued, Kola visited Boba Durojoyo. "Young man, there are things you shouldn't know, things that shouldn't be disturbed," the mortician warned in a raspy voice, his eyes darting around nervously. "But if you seek the truth, be prepared for what it will cost you." Kola persisted, and after a long, uneasy silence, Boba Durojoyo finally spoke. He told Kola of a woman who had been coming to the mortuary for years, collecting something vile. The mortician's words sent chills down Kola's spine. Armed with the information from Boba Durojoyo, Kola felt closer than ever to cracking the mystery of Amina's culinary magic. He decided to follow her. For several nights, he watched from the shadows as she closed her restaurant and slipped away under the cover of darkness. Each night, she walked the same path, straight to the mortuary. One night, Kola got brave. He followed her into the mortuary and watched as she exchanged money for a small bottle of what looked like murky water. His heart raced. His suspicions were confirmed. Amina was using something far more sinister than secret spices to make her food. Amina's restaurant flourished as her secret ingredient continued to work its magic. More customers came, and even those who had sworn off her food before were now lining up, drawn by an unexplainable craving. The power of the water infused in her meals created a supernatural pull, making people forget the taste of any other food. They were captivated, enchanted by her cooking, but oblivious to the dark forces behind it. Amina could feel the growing power within her, a connection to something far beyond the mortal realm. The spirits of the dead clung to her, whispering, urging her to continue. But the more she used the water, the more restless her nights became, haunted by the visions of those whose lives had ended in that mortuary. With every meal she served, Amina's control over her secret started to fray. The spirits attached to the water didn't remain silent. They began to invade her dreams, their cold, lifeless faces appearing at her bedside, whispering their stories of unfulfilled lives. She tried to shake them off, but their grip grew stronger. Amina started to fear sleep, afraid of what she might see or hear in the quiet hours of the night. Her once calm demeanor in the kitchen was replaced with unease. She started making mistakes, burning pots of rice, oversalting dishes. And yet, the customers still came, still hungry for more. One night, Amina had a vision more vivid than any before. She was walking through a dense forest, the moonlight barely piercing the thick canopy of trees. Shadows moved around her, and from those shadows emerged the figures of the dead, those whose water she had used for her cooking. Their eyes, hollow and accusing, bored into her soul. One woman stepped forward, her face half decayed, her voice a rasping echo. "You took from us. Now we will take from you." Amina woke up in a cold sweat, her body shaking uncontrollably. She felt the presence of the dead around her, growing stronger. She knew the spirits were angry, and it wouldn't be long before they exacted their revenge. The first sign that things were beginning to unravel came in the form of a customer who collapsed in the middle of the restaurant. One moment he was devouring a plate of Amina's famous pepper soup, and the next, he was clutching his chest, his eyes rolling back in his head. Panic ensued as people rushed to help, but the man was beyond saving. Amina stood frozen in the chaos, her heart racing. She knew what had happened, it was the spirits. They were no longer content with just lingering in her dreams. They wanted more. Kola knew he had to act fast. The mortician's warning weighed heavily on his mind, and now, with the unexplained death at the restaurant, he was more determined than ever to expose Amina. He returned to Baba Dorojehiyo, this time with urgency in his voice. "You were right. Something is wrong at Momo's Delight," Kola said, his voice strained. Baba Dorojehiyo nodded solemnly. "The spirits are restless, young man. They do not forgive easily." Kola decided he would confront Amina directly, but he needed more evidence. He started interviewing customers who had experienced strange sensations after eating at her restaurant, gathering stories of people who felt inexplicably drawn back despite feeling unsettled after their meals. Amina's once immaculate appearance was starting to slip. Her eyes were sunken, dark circles etched beneath them from sleepless nights. She moved through her kitchen like a ghost, haunted by the spirits that whispered constantly in her ear. The food was still delicious, but something in Amina had changed. The joy she once found in cooking was gone, replaced by an overwhelming dread. The spirits wanted more, and they wouldn't stop until they had consumed her entirely. One fateful evening, Kola managed to slip into the back of Amina's restaurant unnoticed. He crept into her storage room, where he found bottles of the same murky liquid he had seen her take from the mortuary. His heart pounded as he realized the full extent of her dark practices. He took photographs and samples, determined to expose her. As he turned to leave, a cold chill ran down his spine. He could feel eyes on him, the presence of something unnatural lurking in the shadows. He hurried out, but he couldn't shake the feeling that the spirits were watching. That night, Amina received her final warning from the spirits. They appeared to her as a procession of the dead, their faces contorted in agony. They surrounded her, their voices a cacophony of pain and anger. "We gave you power, and now you must pay the price," they whispered in unison. Amina fell to her knees, pleading for mercy, but the spirits were unrelenting. They had given her everything, and now they demanded it back. Kola's evidence was damning, and he wasted no time publishing his findings. The news spread like wildfire across the city. Headlines screamed about the witch who used water from dead bodies to cook for her customers. People were horrified, and the once packed restaurant quickly emptied out. But it was too late for Amina. The spirits had already marked her, and they wouldn't stop until they had claimed their due. The backlash was swift and severe. Amina's reputation, once untouchable, was now in ruins. Customers who had once praised her food now spat at the mention of her name. Her restaurant, once the crown jewel of Lagos, stood empty, the once warm and inviting atmosphere now cold and desolate. Amina retreated into the shadows, her mind unraveling with each passing day. The spirits were everywhere now, their whispers constant, their presence suffocating. Amina's descent into madness was quick and unforgiving. The spirits, once content with merely haunting her dreams, now took control over every waking moment. She could no longer distinguish between the living and the dead. Faces blurred together, and the world around her became a twisted nightmare. The food she once took such pride in became her torment. Every dish she prepared was filled with the voices of the dead, their sorrow and rage seeping into every bite. No one came to eat anymore, but Amina kept cooking, compelled by forces beyond her control. Kola, having exposed Amina's dark secret, returned to the restaurant one last time. He found her in the kitchen, her once elegant appearance now a ragged shadow of her former self. Her eyes, wild and unseeing, flickered toward him as he approached. You did this," she hissed, her voice filled with venom. Kola stood his ground, knowing that the Amina standing before him was no longer the woman who had once commanded Lagos's culinary scene. She was a vessel for the dead, their anger and pain consuming her completely. The restaurant that had once been the pride of Lagos was now in ruins. The doors were locked, the windows boarded up, and the sign that once proudly displayed Momo's Delight hung crooked and faded. But Amina was still inside, cooking meals for ghosts, her mind lost to the spirits that had taken control of her. Kola knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities arrived. He had done what he set out to do, expose the truth, but there was no satisfaction in it. He had watched a woman destroy herself, consumed by the very power she had sought to wield. It wasn't long before the police arrived at Momo's Delight. The evidence Kola had gathered was enough to secure a warrant, and they stormed the restaurant, finding Amina in the kitchen, surrounded by plates of uneaten food. She didn't resist as they took her away, her eyes vacant, her mind lost to the dark forces that had consumed her. The arrest sent shockwaves through the city. People who had once praised her food now recoiled in horror, unable to believe they had been eating meals infused with such a sinister ingredient. Lagos buzzed with gossip and fear. People whispered about the dark magic that had once been hidden in plain sight. No one could believe they had been so blind, that they had eaten food prepared with water taken from the dead. Restaurants across the city saw a sharp decline in customers as people became paranoid about where their food was coming from. Amina's arrest marked the end of an era. The food scene in Lagos, once vibrant and thriving, was now shrouded in suspicion and fear. Even behind bars, Amina couldn't escape the spirits. They haunted her every moment, their cold, dead hands reaching for her through the darkness of her cell. She had taken from them, and now they were taking everything from her. Amina's once sharp mind had disintegrated entirely. She spoke only in whispers, her words unintelligible, as the spirits clawed at her sanity. She was no longer the master of her fate. The spirits had taken control, and they would not release her until she had paid the ultimate price. Kola, despite his success in exposing the truth, couldn't shake the feeling of guilt that hung over him. He had uncovered the darkness in Amina's life, but at what cost? He had watched a woman destroy herself, consumed by forces she could not control. In the days following Amina's arrest, Kola found himself plagued by nightmares. The same spirits that had haunted Amina now visited him in his sleep, their whispers filling his ears, their cold hands reaching for him through the darkness. The spirits, no longer content with tormenting Amina, turned their attention to Kola. He had interfered with their plan, exposed their secrets, and now they wanted him to. His nights were filled with visions of the dead, their faces twisted in pain, their voices accusing him of meddling in things he didn't understand. Kola's once bright future was now clouded by the darkness he had uncovered. The spirits had marked him, just as they had marked Amina, and there was no escaping their wrath. In the cold, dark cell where Amina was held, the spirits finally claimed her. She was found one morning, her body cold and lifeless, her face twisted in terror. The official report said it was a heart attack, but those who knew the truth whispered that it was the spirits who had finally taken what was theirs. Amina's death marked the end of a tragic chapter in Lagos's history, but the darkness she had unleashed would linger for years to come. The people of Lagos tried to move on, but the shadow of Amina's restaurant hung over them. Stories of the dead, of dark magic and cursed food, became part of the city's folklore. Children whispered about the witch who had cooked with water from the dead, and no one dared to eat at a restaurant without knowing exactly where the ingredients came from. The spirits that had haunted Amina were still out there, and the city of Lagos would never be the same. Kola's once promising career as a journalist came to an abrupt end. The same spirits that had haunted Amina now haunted him, their whispers growing louder with each passing day. He tried to ignore them, but they were relentless. His work suffered, and soon, his reputation was in ruins. No one wanted to hire a man who was being followed by whispers of the dead. Kola had uncovered the truth, but it had cost him everything. Though Mama's Delight was long gone, its legacy lived on. The people of Lagos would never forget the dark chapter in their city's history, the story of the woman who had used water from the dead to cook her meals. The building that once housed the restaurant stood empty, its windows boarded up, but people still avoided it, afraid of what might linger inside. Some said they could still smell the food, that the spirits of the dead were still there, waiting for someone to return.